Guys, Italy's not going to the World Cup in 2026. It's going to be the third World Cup that Italy misses out on. Absolute fucking embarrassment. But Frankie, we can make it through the World Cup playoff qualifiers, and we just gotta do well in our group, and we'll get through. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Not under Luciano Spalletti. Not with the current tactics we saw yesterday. I knew it was going to be a tough game. We're facing Norway in their golden generation. Might be the best Norway side ever. Tails are up. They had I think a plus 10 goal difference going into the game yesterday. It's in Oslo. And, obviously led by Erling Haaland, Solaroth. And they wanted it more. I've never seen, I can't even say I've never seen, because Italian football, the Azzurri in particular, has been in crisis for the last 10 years. And I know what you're saying, well, we won the European Championship. And honestly, that's kind of a bittersweet thing, because I think winning the European Championship in 2020 really swept a lot of the core problems under the rug. And if we want to just briefly talk about that European Championship, we won that European Championship because of one man and one man only, Federico Chiesa. That's why we won the European Championship. A brilliant individual tournament performance. An all-time Azzurri tournament performance, going up there with 1982 with Paolo Rossi. But let's stay on topic. We got to talk about Norway, 3-0 Italy. And I knew we were going to lose this game. I knew we were going to lose this game before kickoff. I'm a betting man, but I didn't have the heart to go to FanDuel and bet against Italy. They say never bet against your own team, or never bet for your team, but I just didn't have the heart to do it. And me in fantasy land, I wanted to believe we were going to see something special, but, you see the team sheet, and, you knew Spalletti was going to stick to the back three, even though we have this defensive crisis going on. Buongiorno, no Calafiori. We're going to stick to the back three, which I think I think it was way better suited for this game to have a back four. But I digress. We start with the back three. And, as an Azzurri fan, you're optimistic. You're optimistic going into the game. And originally, the first 10 minutes, I thought we started somewhat okay, holding possession well. But then it became very apparent that despite our possession, I think we did dominate possession this game, 65, 70% possession, we didn't know what to do with the ball. Our tactics were devoid of all creativity. Rovella would get the ball. First off, everything was incredibly pedestrian. Rovella gets the ball. He's waiting for what? I don't fucking know. Norway gets back into place. They have their whole team structure set up. And what do? We pass the ball out wide to Udoji. Udoji comes up the flank. Meaningless cross in the box. And it's vice versa with Zappacosta on the right. Why is Zappacosta starting in 2025? I have no fucking idea. If you're going to play this, not that it really would have made a difference, but it should have been Andrea Cambiaso. Everybody knows it should have been Cambiaso. If it was up to me, I would have went to the 4-3-3. That's actually Spalletti's tried and true formation. I don't know why he all of a sudden has abandoned it. After the disastrous Euro campaign, he's abandoned that formation, and we go to a back three. But where we are now, we have no dynamism. The team, the game of football has evolved where it's about athleticism, physicality, and we have none of that. We have nobody on this team that's willing to take on their man. And you saw that yesterday. Even when we dominated the ball at some points in Norway's half, it was just like a game of FIFA. We're going to go back and forth, like a ping pong, back and forth, but really no penetration into Norway's box. Nothing. I think our first shot on goal came in the 90th minute. And what a fucking coincidence. It was a cross from Riccardo Rossellini to Lorenzo Luca. So from the jump, I looked at the team sheet, and I knew this 3-5-1-1 wasn't going to work. And, I don't want to point the finger at any individual player, because I think it was a collectively terrible performance. I guess we start with the positives. I liked what I saw from Diego Coppola. I thought that was a solid debut. It's a terrible, terrible position to make your debut. Your first cap is in a must-win game in Norway. But he did well, some big tackles on Holland, and I like what I saw from him overall. And to be honest, he probably was our best defender. I mean, Bastoni was completely terrible. Di Lorenzo and Spalletti have some sort of love affair. Di Lorenzo doesn't belong anywhere near the national team at this point. But here we are. And now we found ourselves having to go through, most likely, on balance of probabilities, this playoff scenario. I think Spalletti needs to go. I think that goes without saying. That's basically what we all feel. The whole Italian tabloids, you go on X, everyone's saying Spalletti needs to go. But that's only half the problem. Spalletti going isn't this magical panacea that's going to solve everything. If it was up to me, what I think, when we talk about dynamism and having the attacking talent, Italy generally lacks talent. But for whatever reason, we shoot ourselves. Not only do we lack the talent that we once had in 2006, we don't have guys like Francesco Totti, Alessandro Del Piero, Antonio Cassano. Like we don't have those guys anymore. But not only do we not have those guys, but we shoot ourselves in the foot by playing a formation that is not to our strengths. If it was up to me, I'm starting a 4-3-3. I wish Moise Kean was there. I think he could have made somewhat of a difference. But even with Retegui up top, Federico Chiesa has to be in the team. I don't care if Federico Chiesa plays 5 minutes all year. He has more attacking quality than anything we saw yesterday. He has to be in the team. I think we need to stop looking at ourselves as the Azzurri, 4-time champions. We're in the same level as the U.S. Soccer Federation right now. In the U.S. Soccer Federation, even if Giovanni Reina played 5 games for Dortmund, he's going to be in the team because he has more attacking quality than the rest of the field. And that's the same thing with a player like Federico Chiesa to me. Federico Chiesa has to be there. I'm hoping that he comes back to Serie A. I'm hoping something changes in his playing circumstance this year, especially going into the rest of this qualifying campaign. But it's Federico Chiesa, Retegui, and then my main man, Riccardo Orsolini, has to start on the right. I don't know what it's going to take for Riccardo Orsolini to actually get in this team. It's mind-blowing, but let's digress once again, and let's go into the game. So we're 3-0 down at halftime. Okay, I'm expecting a performance. The commentators talking about, in Italy's last game against Germany in the Nations League, they came back from 3 goals down, and they'll find some confidence in that at halftime. Okay. What does Spalletti do at halftime? He takes off Rovella and puts on Frattesi. It's basically a like-for-like substitution. Granted, Frattesi will push up the pitch a little bit more than Rovella, who was absolutely dreadful as this quasi-regista role. But there was no real material changes to the structure of the team. And then once again goes back to the tactics. This 3-5-1-1 does not suit this Italy team. Because when you have a 3-5-1-1, for me, it's predicated on your wingbacks and your centrocampista. So let's touch a little bit on that. Giacomo Raspadori might be the second worst number 10 in all of the history of the Azzurri. Only second to, you already know who I'm going to say, Lorenzo Pellegrini. It's dumbfounding where the player who's worn that jersey for Italy, the evolution of our centrocampista. So you have Giacomo Raspadori in that role, and it's funny because you see him in the game, and he's in our own he's in our own defensive third trying to pick up the ball, and it's. I don't think you can play with Giacomo Raspadori as the 10. Giacomo Raspadori is a striker. And you're asking him to do a role that I think he's very uncomfortable with in a team that's not very talented. So the 3-5-1-1 needs to go. Italy needs to immediately go back to the 4-3-3. And then we'll touch upon the Zappacosta. I just don't get it. That was our whole game plan. Get the ball, pass it out wide to the wing backs, and then hopefully our wing backs can produce this miracle cross that Retegui's going to come onto. We're playing into Norway's strengths. Norway's the second tallest country in the world, and we're having these wishful crosses into the box, hoping that we're gonna come up with something. Like the team, and this is where I think Spalletti has a lot of the blame. Is the team had no creativity, and I think that's on the manager. That's on the manager's tactics. That it was just so poor. One shot on target the whole game. Would Ricardo Orsolini starting in a 4-3-3, would that have made a difference? Maybe. But I guarantee you it would have been a better performance than what we saw. Way better performance than what we saw. So everyone online saying Spalletti needs to go. Spalletti needs to go. And 100% he does. But, Italy's problems, they run deeper than just the coach, than just Spalletti. And that's what I really want to hammer home is that by putting in a Claudio Ranieri, a lot of people are calling Claudio Ranieri, look what he did with Roma. It's going to solve everything. Like that's not really the case. This Italy team, the real problem is a systemic issue within Italian football where for some reason from the age 18 to 25, our players lack development because they do not get playing time in Serie A. So by the time some of the Serie A teams are willing to take shots on these players, they've already missed such a critical period of their development that they're never going to excel to that world-class level. Look at France. You have guys like Desiree Doué, 18 years old, getting starts. Italy might be the only country in the world where we don't value youth. We look down upon it. We put experience on such a pedigree that it's essentially hurt Italian football. And it goes on to the club level where, you have guys like, give me Udinese, for example. Why is Alexis Sanchez getting minutes over a guy like Pefundi? Pefundi's 18 years old, attacking midfielder, really what Italy needs, the Azzurri needs. But yeah, no, we're going to go with Alexis Sanchez. 36 years old, the experience. And it's very frustrating. And the real big thing, the kicker is the Italian teams are not willing to take a risk on the Italian players. However, you have countries, leagues abroad, that are willing to take that risk. It makes no sense. Look at a guy like Wilfried Nanto. The guy had 40 appearances in the championship. I think 15 plus goal contributions, goals and assists. If Federico Chiesa is not your left wing, he's probably our second best option for that left wing spot. And why doesn't he get a call up? Oh, well, he plays in the championship. That's a second-rate league. And we're at a point now with this. We're in a crisis mode with Italian football, with the Azzurri. We're not in a position where we can look past players because they play in the championship. We can't even look. We shouldn't even be looking past players because they play in Serie B. We need all the talent at our disposal. But my point being, another good example is the American Italian. Actually, my paisan, he's from a town really close to me. Luca Coleosho basically was one of Burnley's best players in the championships. You have two really good players, in that 20-year-old range in the championship, but yet none of the Italian club teams are interested in these players. And until that changes, until we have a systemic change in Italian football where we start to value the youth, things are not going to change because the level of talent, like it's dumbfounding to me how we've gone from basically 2006, where every single one of our players were world class in every position. Every position we had a world class player. Who's world class today on that Azzurri team we saw yesterday? I say one player. It's Donnarumma in goal. I mean, you could maybe make the argument, well, Bastoni's world class. I think the last week has put a dent in that argument. And with that being said, too, I think the Inter players, Barella and Bastoni, completely tired at this point in the year. They have no legs left. They have no legs left. I'm not saying you shouldn't have started Bastoni because he's arguably our best outfield player, but it was something to be cognizant of. I think Barella has really disappointed me in the last month. I think Barella might have, we have to tone him down a little bit. The way we speak of Barella like he's this, basically the Andrea Pirlo 2.0. I think we need to calm down with those comparisons. But yeah, so we're talking about the talent. The talent level has digressed, but now we go to the future, and I want Italy to make this World Cup. I really do. It's in the United States. I'm from the New York area. I have a big opportunity to watch Italy play, hopefully in MetLife. But it's looking real bleak. And the only way we're going to make it, because at this point, automatic qualification through the group is finished. We're not making automatic qualification. Norway is going to take top spot. So the best we can hope for is this playoff. And the playoff is a dogfight. It's going to take a lot of grinta to get through that playoff because it's 2 legs, 2 games, single legs, all within a week. And neither are guaranteed to be home. So hypothetically, I believe you can play both games away. Does this Italy look like it's ready to scrap? Not from what I saw. And I'm going to make a recommendation if you're listening, Italian Football Federation. There's only one man right now that I think that's going to get us through this, and that's Gennaro Gattuso. I would love to see Rino Gattuso as the manager, not because he's some tactical genius, but because the team needs grinta. I want to see fight. I want to see a team that's going to go down swinging. We're down 3-0 at halftime. That team yesterday would have if you had the option to forfeit, we don't want to play the second half. You guys win. They would have phoned it in. They would have said, guys, Yu-Gi-Oh, hand on the deck, I surrender. And I saw no fight yesterday. I saw no fight. We're out here supporting this team, and it's almost like half of them don't want to be there. So personally, I think maybe it would be a blessing in disguise if Italy don't qualify, because maybe that will finally be the push we need to say we need systemic changes in Italian football. We need to start embracing our youth. We can't be like Roma shipping off Christian Volpato, who was Italian Young Player of the Year. We can't just ship these guys off, And I know a lot of people are calling youth. The youth is the answer, but let me say this. The national team is not the forum where you develop your youth players. You don't develop your youth, but the clubs develop the players. You don't develop players in the national team. So all these calls for, Tommaso Baldanzi. I'm the biggest Tommaso Baldanzi fan there is as a Romanista. But Tommaso Baldanzi coming in this team, is not really going to change anything. We need wholesale changes in the Italian football. Gravina needs to go. Spalletti needs to go. And I'm really worried about that game against Monday against Moldova. I think if we don't win that game, we may not even make the playoff. I think we really need to rely on Spalletti to see us through one game, and I think we have a few months break before our next international round of fixtures. And at that point, I hope we have a new system, a new identity, because Spalletti has lost his dressing room, and it was very apparent with the whole Acerbi situation. And when Acerbi doesn't want the call, he felt like he was disrespected. We're in this defensive crisis. Why we don't call Gianluca Mancini? Or, obviously Spalletti has a problem with him too. And then Scamacca's liking the post, liking the whole message that Acerbi says. The dressing room is gone, guys. Spalletti lost the dressing room. As a Roma fan, I love Luciano Spalletti. Luciano Spalletti was there with Roma in one of the best periods of football during in 2000, 2008, 2009, that period with Roma. Totti as a false nine. But I think we overhyped Spalletti, guys. I think when Spalletti joined, post Roberto Mancini's disaster, we were all high on Luciano Spalletti because look what he did with Napoli, Campione d'Italia, Napoli. But let's be real, guys. He had the 2 best players in Serie A, Victor Osimhen and Kavica Kvaratskhelia. I'm not trying to take anything away from that Scudetto, but how much of it was the talent and how much was it the tactics? Not to mention Kim Min-jae was, arguably a top 3 center back that year in Calcio. So I'm upset, guys, and I think we really need to tone down our expectations. The U.S. Italian football is on the same level as the U.S. Soccer Federation right now. I think if the United States national team and the Italian national team played each other 10 times, I think they would split most of those games. I don't think we're at a level that's the level we're at. I think the European Championship win in 2020 really, really did a lot of harm in terms of how we view Italian football, and everything's okay, guys. You see European champions. It's the future is bleak, and I don't know what it's going to take to change. So thank you guys for tuning in.